so much for sticking out the courses today. I think today's been a really important and interesting conference, and I'd like to thank Lindsay for having Youth Employment UK here and Tony very much for the welcome. Being well aware that I was the last slot of the day, and I know that Lindsay and I share one thing in common. We share lots of things in common, actually. Gin's another, I think, Lindsay. I never go to a conference and don't talk about gin, which is usually why I'm on at the end of the day, because it's not appropriate at 9 o'clock. But Lindsay and I share one thing in common, and that is that we feel that whenever we're delivering conferences, that the outcome should always be something really tangible and useful for the delegates. You know, today has been such a hotbed of topics around diversity and inclusion, and it is really important, because we have so many issues still in the UK with these issues, that we don't all just go away going, do you know what, that was interesting, I've learned something. What we have to make sure we do is go away and take action, because actually, if we don't go away and take action, and we have a responsibility as delegates in this room to do so, but if we don't, guess what, we'll be here next year with the same issues, talking about the same things. So I'm very much a practical human. I'm very much about giving people tangible assets to go and do something. I'm a bit of a problem solver in that regard. So actually, this last bit of the presentation is my gift to you in this conference. Tomorrow, Youth Employment UK and partners are launching a national mark for all employers in the country who support young people. And it's going to be launched tomorrow as it's part of National Employability Day. But I think what what I'm going to show you just fits so well in with the themes and the practicalities of how do you ensure your policies and your procedures are encouraging young people of all different minorities and backgrounds to come into your employment. And this is actually going to be a really tangible tool for organisations to check their policies and procedures against the practical best practice of diversity and inclusion and make sure that as an employer you're meeting those requirements. So I felt that it was important, particularly finishing at the end of such a busy conference where you've had so much data and information, that we give you something that actually allows you to just go ahead and do that and to become recognised for being an organisation that's making a difference and creating opportunities. Now, of course, I understand that today we've talked about lots of different diversity issues, and it's not just about youth employment. We champion employment and fair opportunities for every single group of young people. Sorry, see, look, I'm driven to the youth agenda, but we do generally champion all opportunities for all people. But our expertise is very much embedded in the youth. So who are we, for those of you that don't know me very well yet? So Youth Employment UK is a membership organisation with the sole purpose of tackling youth unemployment. For those of you in the room that have been around for a few years now, we know that youth unemployment has been a major issue in the UK, not just since the recession, but actually the numbers of youth unemployment started to rise back in 2005. It's a very complex subject, and actually as an organisation that specialises in policy and has expertise across the whole piece of youth employment, we look at things like mental health, we look at challenges around social mobility, we're looking at education to employment transitions, we look at disabilities of young people, we look at the big catch-22 of how entry-level roles, many of which require work experience, and a young person looking for an entry-level role has generally got no work experience. There are a raft of social challenges around youth employment. And the numbers of young people moving from education into employment stay fairly stagnant. Young people as a group are 3 times more likely to be unemployed than any other group. So youth employment is hugely important. We also have issues in that age group, particularly with underemployment, where we have large numbers of graduates in low-skilled, low-entry job roles, which creates a bottleneck for the employment market for those young people without qualifications who then really struggle to move on. So it's been a tough challenge for this country, and one I don't think that we're really addressing as well as what we could do. The Social Mobility Commission report, if you think you were passionate about the CAMS issue, oh my goodness, a social mobility report was published last week. I don't know if any of you read that, but what it tells us is that we've had 2 decades of poor social mobility practice in this country. It's not just one political party's policies and procedures. It's not just about austerity. We know that's not helping. But it is something that we're just not fixing in this country. Our young people who don't have those opportunities to experience work, to have good networks around them, to go to good schools, continue to really struggle to move into long-term, sustainable, quality employment. How can it possibly be that we actually have nearly 1.3 million young people, according to Impetus PEF, hidden from the labour market, unemployed, underemployed, and not claiming job seeker support or benefit services for a myriad of reasons? How is it that we are not, as communities, and we talk a lot about communities, making sure that every single one of our children can progress? I feel very, as you will tell, very passionate about all of our children. I too am a mum. I've got a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and we've got one of our young ambassadors here with us today. We try to give as many young people opportunities as we possibly can. And I know, really, that my kids are going to be okay. My son thinks he wants to go into the police force or something like that. And recently at school, he's just picked his GCSEs. And you could feel the total stress around that selection of GCSEs and what that's going to mean and the impacts. And I kind of said to him at the end of it, do you know what? Pick the subjects you like. Let's get you through school, enjoying every moment. I want you to be an active, engaged learner. I want you to try your best, do your best, and the rest will fall into place as it does. Now, as part of his GCSE option process, he was invited to apply for the Army Cadets, which was a real big sell for him because he's thinking about being in the police or something else like that. And he gets Wednesday afternoons off school. So we practiced. He had to go for an interview, and we practiced the night before his interview. Now, I'm a careers expert. I'm a youth employment activist. I thought, you know what, we'll make sure that you've got the tools so you secure your interview. You know, I can't have my child fail at interview. It just won't work. So we sat down in the garden and I said, right, Matthew, what they might ask you, let's practice, and let's practice what your answers are. So I'm going to pretend to be the drill sergeant. I assumes that might be some level of person that might interview him. I'm going to pretend to be the drill sergeant. So tell me, Matthew, what do you do outside of school that will make you good for being in the cadets, I asked him. And he said, oh, I play rugby, which makes me tough. So if I get shot, I won't cry. Now, luckily for Matthew has me as his parent who's neurotic about youth unemployment. I went, whoa, I love where you're going with this. I think rugby is brilliant as an example. But instead of thinking about being shot, let's think about your leadership skills and your team working skills. And we had the opportunity to have a brilliant conversation about the skills that he is learning in his social environments and how that will best play itself in an interview with, in this case, obviously, a voluntary service. But potentially that will stick with him, she hopes, for future employment opportunities. How many of our kids do you think have that sort of support at home? Now, that's the right of my children, to have access to me and to a dad that's great and able to give them those helping hands. But for other children in high areas of deprivation, other children coming out of second and third generation of workless homes, don't get that support. They're not getting the mentoring. They don't get to access the Duke of Edinburgh and the range and depth of opportunities that we want all children to have. And so Youth Employment UK was born out of wanting every child. Why is our careers education a postcode lottery? Why is it that we've dictated that all children should do an EBAC when we can't guarantee that we've got good French teachers? So actually, there and there, we're guaranteeing our children to fail unless they're linguists. There are so many challenges that we put up in front of our children through the very early years of their schooling, through the very later years of their education choices, post-16 choices. We're about to hit major, major reform. And I can bet your bottom dollar there's not too many secondary schools that understand what's going to hit us at post-16. So how are they preparing those children for the choices that are ahead of them, the technical levels, the apprenticeships, or the academic pathways? Our schools are not equipped to provide that type of information and service, and if they are, it's not universally available to every single child in this country. And there I have it in saying that every single child deserves the same rights, and the same access to good quality information, the same access to good training providers and colleges and education as everybody else. And that's kind of at the heart of us. It's about young people. It's about ensuring that 14 to 24-year-olds have access to one thing, and I guess, Kate, that comes with your passion to have them give access to them a universal mental health and wellbeing service. They should have access to a good youth employment service that talks about skills, talks about careers, talks about pathways, and signposts them to all of the things that exist and can create opportunity. And also, and very much at the heart of our work, is that is built by them. Too often we see politicians, policymakers, and senior leaders of businesses deciding what's good for young people, deciding what's good for youth employment, because we know best. Michael Gove, in his wisdom, cancelled the Connections career service and took out of the curriculum the standard duty of work experience. That is Whitehall, as I like to call them, pale male stale decision makers, making decisions about our children. I live in a place called Corby. It's high deprivation in Corby. Those kids need work experience. Those kids need connections. Those kids need services. And yet decisions are being made because I tell you what, I met Michael Gove once. I don't think he knows what it's like to be a 16-year-old in Corby. I don't think he's spoken to a 16-year-old in Corby. I think every politician should have to speak to a 16-year-old in Corby if they are making decisions that impact and affect those very young people. Our young people are certainly able to have debates and discussions around youth employment. We specialise in policy. We have 15,000 young members who are part of our membership. And they really understand when I talk about connection services being cut. They get it. They can have a debate about that. They really understand when I talk about apprenticeships losing their qualifications. They can have a debate about that. These services are for young people. Young people should be at the heart of them, and that's very much everything that we do is youth-led and youth-driven. That part of our work is so critical and actually has allowed us as an organisation to become the Secretariat for the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Youth Employment. We work very closely with that group, making sure that young people are in Parliament once a month, talking to politicians about all the issues that affect them in moving from school into employment. We work with DWP extremely closely. We work with the Department for Education, we work with DCMS, and we've just started working with the Cabinet Office because we're one of the only organisations in this youth employment space that goes, but have you spoken to a young person lately? Let's have a look at that before we write that policy in stone, and it's really important. So that's just a little bit about who we are. As I say, we founded up to tackle youth unemployment, and this is one of the things that we're doing. The Talent Match Mark launches, as I've said, tomorrow, and it's launched in response to the fact that we know employers are giving really great opportunities to young people. To say that that's not happening would be untrue. Things and initiatives right across the country, like the Careers and Enterprise Company, Movement to Work, lots and lots of different initiatives have really invigorated our employers. And not least, as Stephen from Centre has said, they also know these employers that they're going to have major skill gaps. So actually, they're the head of the game when it comes to trying to engage and encourage young people to come into their sectors. So how come is it that we have huge employer appetite to create opportunity and actually still nearly 1.3 million young people unemployed or hidden from that labour market? It's because the disconnect in the middle. Young people still struggle, and they tell us this. They're struggling to find the opportunities. Young people who are applying for jobs find themselves in that catch-22 of being rejected because their CV's not very good, but they don't get feedback. They're not meeting the experience criteria for level entry roles, and so on and so forth. Or they just can't find where those really open and great opportunities are. So in part, the Talent Match Mark will help employers to be recognised and celebrated for the work that they are doing, but also will help our young people, our growing sway of young people working within our network to find the youth-friendly employers in their towns, in their cities, across the nation. So who is involved? How big has this gone? It's pretty big. So we are working with 21 partnerships. The lottery has supported this work to fund it, to ensure that actually we're offering the service for free. So this is a quality mark for employers that is available for free. Now when I say employers, and I know there's training providers in the room, you're employers too. The amount of training providers that I'll talk to who don't themselves employ young people or offer work experience opportunities. It's the same for youth organisations, actually. The amount of youth organisations that I've been to talk to, and they go, oh, but LJ, we don't offer work experience here because that's not what we do. We do the service provision. Well, actually, we're all employers. I'm an employer. You guys are employers. So this is something that we can all get involved in. What sits behind the talent match mark are 5 principles. These principles were actually created back in 2012. So this isn't a new concept. This is just a new collaboration that's going out with a big bang tomorrow. The 5 principles of youth-friendly employment are there to support employers to understand what good practice looks like. And guess what? These 5 principles were created by young people who've had barrier after barrier in trying to engage with the world of work. So they've told us back in 2012 with a range of stakeholders where the barriers are and what good practice would look like. So the 5 principles are about creating opportunity, careers talks in schools, mock interviews, work experience. It's about opening up those doors so every child has an opportunity to meet with an employer and engage with some activity. The Careers and Enterprise Company research tells us that young people need to experience 4 contacts, good quality I'd like to add, but 4 contacts with an employer to make them less likely to be neat, 25% less likely to be neat than their peers. So we need to create those opportunities to make that happen. We talk about recognising talent, and this comes where we've got level entry roles where we recruit around A to C GCSE grades when they're not necessarily relevant to the job, or we're asking for experience for a level entry position. We need to recognise that some of our young people have come from a place where they're not necessarily going to be able to tick all of our boxes, but by God, we are missing talent when we exclude some of these people from our application processes. So let's recognise them. Fair employment. Let's pay correctly for the work that our young people are doing. Let's make sure they're entitled to the same benefits and services as other employees. And I heard earlier an organisation, was it PepsiCo, talk about that they're very proud of the fact that they pay their young people in line with all of their colleagues and workers post their apprenticeship. So there's lots of practice and guidance around these 5 issues. Developing young people as they continue into employment. And actually, how many of you have checked your recruitment process with young people who go through the recruitment process to ensure that it's friendly to them and it's accessible to all young people? So we teach our organisation members about youth voice, but these are the 5 principles that underpin the talent match mark. And why? By being recognised as a talent match mark holder, you will be seen as an organisation that's creating opportunities for young people. And you'll be able to access this national network of organisations helping some of the most niche young people, some of the most hidden. So the Talent Match Partnership that we're working in collaboration with have offices all over the country with thousands of young people who have been 12 months longer hidden from the labour market. And these guys are working directly in supporting those young people into employment. All of our Talent Match mark holders will be able to reach out to those communities of young people and access some really brilliant talent. Youth Employment UK, we have a membership of 15,000 young people, which is growing massively. So all of our holders will be able to engage with our young people. To achieve the mark, we have 4 levels: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And what we're asking an employer to do to qualify for just one of the levels, just for bronze, is to offer a work experience opportunity, offer a careers activity engagement in a school, or offer some form of some form of employment. If you guys are doing one of those 3 things, you'll qualify for bronze. If you're doing 2, you'll qualify for silver. 3, you'll qualify for gold. There then is a 4th level where there is a charge, because the charge brings in an on-site assessment where we come in and really unpick your policies and procedures to see how youth-friendly they are against an accredited framework. Goldsmith University have endorsed that framework to make sure that it's quality and sustainable. So they're the 4 levels, and actually it's an easy online application form for you guys to be able to start showing how youth-friendly you really are. But it's also something as training providers and awarding organisations organisations that you can put into your own support services that's where you're working with employers, and encourage them to get recognised for the work that they are doing. The national employers are supporting this tomorrow. British Gas were the first organisation in the country to get the platinum mark. These guys do diversity and inclusion really, really well. So many brilliant opportunities for us to case study and showcase their work through the mark. And as I say, launch day tomorrow. So watch out. You can follow this tomorrow as it unpicks on through our website. You can email me if you want to be ahead of the game. Organisations here today, if you email us and tell us that you want to fill in your application, we will make sure you get recognised as part of the launch tomorrow. So as we're talking about British Gas, we will name check every single organisation that submits an application to us tomorrow. So hopefully that's a bit of a gift and an activity for you to take away and know that you've done some good work post-conference. And I'll hand over to Tony. Oh, I'm staying. Thank you.
Think apprenticeship. Think pathway.